Good evening, free enterprise runners, and welcome to today's second restream and the start of the third week of the Adamant Cup, featuring a matchup from the Aegis Shield group, Nightdew versus Vitasia. My name is Escrunt, and I am joined in the comms booth today by Alicel. How are you doing today, Ali?
I am doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good, and we have got quite the seed for you today, and quite the matchup to go along with it.
Absolutely. We have got two of our older runners, not by age, but how long they've been in the community. Nightdew, of course, being part of the first ZZ1, and Vitasia being part of the ZZ3 community from like forever ago. So these are two runners that know randos.
And notably, Nightdew at the top of the bracket. If Nightdew wins this round, will be right at the top of the bracket for good. Everyone else in the Aegis Shield group has taken at least 2 losses already. So if Nightdew can win, they will be unchallenged for the top spot in this group. And today we bring you a seed which by my count has 9 required key items. We've built this flag set to require high completion rates, but we might be seeing this go on just that little bit longer over and top what you have come to expect from these seeds.
And we also see Vitasia's stream brought to you by InSync. But as Grunt said, 9 is actually a little bit higher than normal, and all of these key items that are required kind of all have long cutscenes.
Yes, welcome to the cutscene seed. Interestingly enough, although these are all potentially, while this is a large number of key items and a large number of cutscenes to go along with them, there are no moon objectives on this seed. We do have the giant, which requires the darkness crystal, but that is the only thing we are going to need the darkness crystal for. Unless, of course, there are key items living on the moon, as we've come to expect from these seeds.
So you're tentatively saying that Moon's haunted.
Well, we don't know if Moon's haunted yet or not, but Moon might be haunted.
Possible haunting of Moon.
Yeah, possible haunting of Moon. We should be getting underway any moment now. Let's hear it for our runners.
And we didn't even mention that we are starting with an Edward today.
For even more excitement.
That's pretty miserable. That's right, I said it. Unless you put a spoon in Eddie's hand, he is not who you want to start with.
Well, fortunately for us, we do have those spoons available somewhere, and if we, as the name of the tournament suggests, if we can find an adamant armor to go along with it, Eddie might just be the damage dealer that we're looking for here. And speaking of adamant, that is a pink tail right off the start. Once we've got a hook, should one of our runners so choose to do so, can go and retrieve an adamant armor and possibly put above Eddie. We'll see if that actually happens or not.
And we're also joined by a Rosa. As far as starting characters, Rosa is definitely in the higher tier. If you can find a heroine robe, which on these loot settings is very likely, get her a decent bow and some arrows, there is your early game DPS.
Yes, well, a white mage is always a welcome addition to most parties. Nightdew is heading directly to Troya, possibly to... No, sorry. Vitasia is heading directly to Troya. Nightdew is electing instead to stay in Baron to do a little bit of looting. Vitasia going to check the free key item that we get from Edward.
And Nightdew finding a silk web, that's one of those items that you really would like for Zeromus.
Vitasia finds the Loka key in Troya.
I mean, it's required.
It is required. We can't do anything with it yet, though. Nightdew, having done the initial Baron loot check, elects also to go over to Troya. Presumably we'll find that same Loka key in a moment.
It's always good to see runners do this early because sometimes you forget that Edward has a key item.
It's very easy to forget, especially on with so many flag sets not giving you this key item. It's very easy to overlook. Vitasia now in Damsion, looting the basement.
There was an Aegis shield. If we can find somebody who wants a shield like that Sid, Aegis shield is good.
Nightdew electing also to loot the public treasury in Trial, which I believe Vitasia did not.
Probably the best thing was that black shirt, and
Yeah.
even that, meh.
Vitasia launching the hovercraft while he's here, which makes sense since we need that for the rat tail turn.
As chat points out, Vitasia finding a tiara. While that doesn't really boost Rosa's white magic stat, it's a great piece of equipment that helps her not to get hit in the face as hard.
Which is always a very nice thing for any of our party members. And now we're seeing we're seeing two of the more common early game plays here. Nightdew is electing to head up Mount Hobbs, presumably for the character check. Vitasia electing to go to Castle Evelyn for looting purposes. With the flags set as they are, that is Yang and Demas on Mount Hobbs. But the flags as they are, especially with T. Wildish, you can find an interesting variety of loot in Castle Evelyn. The real prizes are in the trapped chests, which are unlikely to be able to take this early on, but the trap chests in Castle Evelyn can contain tier 8 items, which include, for example, more adamant armors. That's presumably not what we're looking for quite this early in the seed, but it's always a welcome find when you can find more of them.
Definitely, and even some of the untrapped chests can have some pretty nice loot. You could find some of those heroine robes. I've seen, I believe, Stardust rods. Some pretty nice stuff, although we really haven't found anything that really is game-breaking. I guess that cat claw, sort of.
Well, you will need to find Yang, as Nightdew has, in order for that cat claw to be of the most use, or Edge, I suppose, but Edge has better equipment than you can use than that, of course.
Well, especially that Hanzo steel that we pulled out of that chest.
Indeed.
As well as a ninja hat and a ribbon.
So we're finding quite a bit of useful equipment here, just no one that can use it quite yet. Nightdew electing to check the one readily available chest on Mount Hobbs before leaving after defeating Demas. It'll be interesting to see where both of our runners are going from here.
Other than that, Rosa, this party doesn't have a lot of power. Yang can be a powerhouse at later levels, but to start is very weak and doesn't really do a whole lot to help the party.
As Vitasia finds his way up to Mount Hobbs, we see Nightdew electing to loot his way through Antlion Cave. While we do have a key item and boss waiting at the end here, sometimes there is a significant amount of treasure here to be had. It may not be the highest quality treasure, but even the smallest thing. There's another tiara, interestingly enough. Even the smallest treasure can make a significant difference in these seeds.
Even that Gaia drum is a pretty big pickup for the Antlion Cave, because it can probably one-shot whoever the boss is here.
Question from chat. Have we found any good bows and arrows? I do not believe so at this point.
We did just find that silent staff, which is surprisingly more useful than you would initially think.
Yeah, and it appears that Nightdew believes that it's preferable to the archer bow that Rosa started with. Alright, who's our boss in Antlion today? That is some form of Mylon. It is Mylon Z.
Mylon Z is notably immune to earth damage and very weak to fire, as well as curatives.
So that Gaia drum is useless here. Interestingly enough, the way that Mylon Z is immune to earth damage is by virtue of being floating. Not that you would be able to tell from this fight.
Well, I mean, Mylon Z floats and the orbs don't.
Yep. Mylon Z is down. Nightdew finds a package, which is a key item, but it is not one of the ones that we are looking for.
Now, that package is a gated character check. And our gated characters for this tournament, for the group stages, are Cecil and Fusoya, both of who are what they call good.
Which is why they are gated characters in this flag set. Unfortunately, the gate for the package character, in keeping with the theme of the rest of these objectives, is also involves a large number of cutscenes before you can pick up the character. And it does appear that Nightdew is going to check who this character will be.
That is a Porum.
And we already have a white mage.
Ain't nobody gonna sit through that cutscene for an inferior white mage.
Well, with Porum you would get exit naturally, but apparently that's not a factor in this decision.
We do know that we will get exit eventually with that complete the Tower of Zot, as that is where Rosa learns it in the randomizer.
Nightdew is now in Fabul. There has been a bit of contention as to whether or not going to Fabul early without having the pan in hand, for example, is desirable. But we see Nightdew doing this, and running into D-Lunars as the boss.
Another one of those bosses that is very weak to fire and curatives.
Unfortunately, we have a white mage here, quite able to throw out those curatives.
And even Yang can help because using power does not trigger their virus counter script.
It is pointed out in the chat that this fight could go faster with two white mages, but unfortunately I believe that ship has sailed already.
But Vitasia has picked up his package. I will suspect we will see a check of that by him as well.
In the meantime, the dealers have both been defeated. We will see in a moment what key item, if any, we will be getting out of Fabul today. That is a tower key. Also not one of the key items that we need for this particular completion, but it does gate another key item check once we get there.
And it is another key item that we still cannot access, as we still don't have access to the underground.
We are rapidly running out of places in the overworld that we can check for additional key items. I believe Baron Inn, Mount Ordeals would be the locations that are left.
Yep, unless we find another words, not terminal key item, the other one.
Gating key item?
Sure.
Let's go with that.
Unless we find one of those that could then lead to underground access, like the harp or the earth crystal or the Baron key.
Conveniently pointing out how that gating works. Chain key item is also a good way to refer to these. But we see, speaking of Mount Ordeals, we do see Vitasia heading up Mount Ordeals now. Nightdew is electing instead, presumably to check Baron Inn at this point. So we will see which of these two locations holds our progress.
Now, Nightdew did see that the Magus Sisters are in the first location. That Gaia drum would come in very handy here.
We'll see if that. Yes, indeed. And it looks like Nightdew is breaking up the guide drum just for this purpose. Meanwhile, Vitasia finds a sparkle in the first spot on Mount Ordeals. Let's see who it is today. That is a wyvern, so I think we can safely say that our progress is in Baron Inn.
Angry Blarg.
Very angry Blarg. So I imagine that we'll now see Vitasia immediately head off to Baron Inn.
And we find Dr. Lugay and Balnob, which is a very slow fight and an exceedingly slow location.
And contrary to my expectations, Vitasia is in fact in Fool now, not having done this check yet either. But we already know that the only thing awaiting Vitasia in Fool is the tower key at the moment.
And Fabul's selling self-summons, and if you head up the tower to Sheila, you will also find a free self-summon.
If only we had a Redia to self things with. Alright, Nightdew now in the second half of the Dr. Lugay fight. Vitasia just entering the D-Lunar fight.
One very nice thing about fighting Dr. Lugay here is that you get a full heal after this, so you don't have to worry about Poison Walk.
Which is always a very nice thing not to have to worry about. And Vitasia is through the D-Lunar fight, is about to find out that progress is not here.
And by using that big bomb, Vitasia actually saving quite a bit of time over Nightdew, who was relying on cure spells.
Yes, that was a very efficient fight. There's the tower key. Well, the Dr. Lugay fight on Nightdew's end continues to take some time. I wonder if we'll see Vitasia well, Nightdew is through the fight now, but I wonder if how well Vitasia will handle the same fight. That is a hook. It appears that we have a hook route in our future. Notably, that also allows us to turn in that pink tail, which I suspect at least one of our runners will do before attempting the hook route.
And we'll see what kind of nonsense is waiting down in the hook route. If it's something nasty like, say, a turtle, I would try that wyvern again just to see if it might be a a magma key up at the top of Ordeals.
So it is certainly possible now that the magma key could be on the other side of that wyvern. But at the very least, we will see at least both runners check who the bosses are, because that character check will be very valuable as well. Not to mention the shops in Cave Evelyn. Try pointing out a Magnes key, so to speak, would also be good. I'm sure we'd all like to see that too. As expected, Nightdew is going to turn in the pink tail. We'll see our first Adamant armor of the seed in just a few moments. Now, with this party, we have an Edward, we have a Yang, we have a Sid now, we have a Rosa. Do we put the Adamant armor on any of those? And if so, who? I'm also inclined to say no, unless we run into something particularly prohibitive on the hook route. We shall find out.
For those who are unaware, Okay.
And that is the Adamant armor going on Sid on Nightdew's side.
I'm guessing that Sid is either being kind of made the permanent anchor for Nightdew, or he's not intending to keep him to the final party, as when you take off that adamant armor, you actually receive weakness to, I believe it's fire and ice, maybe thunder.
I believe, yeah, fire, ice, and lightning damage. I believe all of the major forms of elemental damage. Meaning that if you have a character from whom you've removed the adamant armor and they get hit by one of those elemental attacks, they're probably taking a nap.
Morpheus in chat is pointing out that the number of things that deal elemental damage are few and far between, so you should always equip your adamant armors.
Which is fair. The advantages you get from equipping the adamant armors are likely to far outweigh the chances that you'll run into one of those scenarios. And being corrected that lightning is not one of the elemental types that's affected by it. Thank you. But the nature of adamant armor has led to some discussion in some of our other restreams as to can you consider it to be one of the most broken items in any Final Fantasy games? But while we think about that, we can see that Nightdew is through the Wyvern fight and is finding the Kaipo guards in the Marlon Z spot.
Not the fight that you want to see this early. You would love to see this fight up on the moon, or in the sealed cave, or anywhere that isn't here.
Yeah, the notable thing about the Kaipo guards and some of the other possible boss encounters, such as the Baron guards or the Dark Imps, is that these, at least in the free bosses setting, which is on by default, these enemies do not have the boss fit set, which means that you can use, say, the Assassin Dagger against them, as you're seeing Nightdew do, or a variety of other spells, such as Stone or Coffins, or a variety of ways to easily deal with them. So, ideally, you want to see these bosses in spots, which normally could provide you a lot more difficulty than this spot would.
And Nightdew very quickly getting through that fight. Gonna go ahead and check and see what key item is up here, if it's worth anything, and if we're doing that hook route.
And that is an adamant. That is required.
And it is a terminal key item.
Which means, one, we'll need to see Vitasia. Speaking of free boss fights, Water Hag is also a very simple boss fight, and probably not who we were hoping to find here. Not only because this is effectively a free boss fight, but also because this would take much longer than most conventional bosses would in this spot to defeat.
Now, to be fair, the other blue robe would have taken longer.
That is true. The other blue robe, of course, would be the Alt Gauntlet, which will take up a lot of time no matter where you find it. Meanwhile, Vitasia has entered the hook route after having also picked up the adamant armor.
And finding hourglasses and Bacchus wines, that's a pretty nice shop.
It is. And interestingly, Vitasia still has the adamant armor unequipped, so perhaps deferring that decision until we see who the next character here is. Nightdew is through the last of the Mount Ordeals fights, and will presumably, having exhausted all of their checks, be heading off to the road as well.
And Vitasia buying some diamond rings. These are a nice pickup. They do provide some, I believe it is lightning resistance.
Vitasia also electing to loot Cave Eplin on the way through, finding the trapped chest. And having just bought hourglasses, is now using them. It should be fairly trivial to get through at this point.
Yeah, with that hourglass out, and all characters standing and only one sleeping.
The only real problem here is that this party is not dealing very much damage right now, other than Yang.
I don't believe that the Staleman can be swooned.
So we will get through this, it'll just take a little bit of time. The Nightdew quickly catching up as a result of this. Nightdew checking the shops, they're lucky not to buy anything from the weapon or armor shops. Well, Vitasia finds a white robe in the trapped chest.
A white robe is great for Rosa at Zeromus, or in a pinch, a Cecil. Provides a ton of magical resist, and probably one of her best armor equipment outside of the Adamant itself.
Vitasia continuing to loot. I believe we found another tiara and a Murasame from the chests we've seen so far. That's also a mute dagger that we just found in one of the chests, which has made a difference in a surprising number of these flag sets and races.
And a rune ring and an elven bow.
And that is an edge, conveniently enough for whom we just found that fine Hanzo steel.
Y'all remember that turtle I was talking about?
Well, there it is.
Have fun with that.
Well, this will be quite interesting.
Unfortunately, the turtle cares not for your adamant armor. And the wave is still going to do a fixed number of damage.
And unfortunately, the spot in which our turtle is living today has quite a large amount of hit points relative to some other spots you can find him in. So that wave will be doing quite a bit of damage. We see Vitasia putting the Adamant on edge. Under the circumstances, I think I would be doing the same thing.
Edge, especially with two either Masamunes or Murasames, I'm not sure which one he picked up, is a pretty good target for that adamant armor.
Okay, Nightdew is presumably also going to elect to pick up Edge here. I would not be surprised if we see Edward go away here as well. It'll be interesting to see if Nightdew elects to shift the Adamant over onto Edge as well. There goes Edward.
And one other thing that we didn't say to start with about that Edge, he did come equipped with a Thunderclaw. And Thunderclaws are good for the turtle.
Yes, while Hinatsu is in the gathering the water phase, is weak to thunder, so that Thunderclaw will prove to be quite useful in this fight. We do see Nightdew placing the Adamant armor on Edge, so we'll see if it ever comes into play that Sid is now very weak to fire and ice. Meanwhile, Vitasia finds the Mad Ogre Trap's chest in the tower and is electing to churn through it as well, using the Life Glitch to pick up some additional experience from this fight as well.
This is definitely one of the nicest fights to Life Glitch in the fairly early game, as these Mad Ogres give a lot of XP.
And it's having a lot of experience, at least on some of our characters, will be good for taking on those upcoming Hook Road fights.
And there could possibly be an Adamant waiting in this box after the Mad Ogres.
Yeah, we also see Nightdew electing to take this fight as well.
And I believe that Sid has an Ogre Axe equipped, so Sid's going to do some damage.
Yeah, we've got a good party for dealing with this particular encounter at this point. That is a Dragoon Spear. Unfortunately, we don't have anyone that can use it right now.
Edge can always throw it in a pinch, but it is a fairly nice weapon if you can find a cane.
Yes, I suppose that Edge technically can use that, but not in the intended manner. Nightdew is also through that fight. We are about to see who the first boss along the hook route is today, on Vitasia's side.
I hope it's Ogopogo.
That would certainly make waves. It'd be a very watered down hook route. Vitasia taking a few moments to prepare, knowing that that turtle is in the second spot, presumably. Getting some Thor Rages ready. Of course, using a Thor Rage at the right time in the Kainatsu script will avoid the wave altogether. Nightdew finds a Lunar Sparkle in the first spot.
I'm a witch!
Oh. That is indeed Ogopogo, whose opening pair of big waves will cut your party's HP in half. It is a very good thing that we are seeing the HP restore automatically in between these fights, because no one coming out of this fight is going to be in any condition to want to do more of a fight.
Thankfully, with that edge, this shouldn't be too much of a problem for either one of our runners. Although Vitasia has decided to start that Dragoon Spear, looks like just didn't have quite enough damage. Wait.
And thank you, Edge. That was a miraculous finish. Both of our runners through that fight, and now Nightdew electing to go back and save, presumably. So is Vitasia, because they both know, as we do, that's not going to be an easy fight.
Well, and both runners got a little bit lucky with that Ogopogo. You can't depend on that every time.
Okay.
But we see simultaneous heals.
And just as this turtle fight starts, welcome Raiders to a less than pleasant hook route seed. You're seeing both of our runners right now, having cleared everything they can in the overworld, being forced to fight Kainatsu in the Rubicante spot in order to continue on to the underground.
And it looks like both Young and Edge have been zerked up on both sides.
You're seeing some well-timed Thor Rages from both runners to nerf those initial waves. We do see a wave as, set off on Nightdew's side, which takes down both Rosa and I believe that was Yang that also died. Nightdew likes to reset out of the fight, not willing to continue with two downed characters like that.
Timing those Thor Rages can be very tricky with this turtle. It's if you do it too soon, then if you do it too late, then the wave comes out.
Yes, and we do, as we've said, Kainatsu has a fairly large HP pool here, so you will need to time quite a few of those to avoid taking big waves like that. Well, not as in big wave, the Ogopogo attack, but big damage value waves.
Yeah, based on this spot, Ogopogo's got nothing on Kainatsu's big wave.
Quite true. There's another wave from Nightdew, which more or less wipes out the party, and Nightdew takes another reset here. We are seeing why you do not want to see Kanatsu in this spot.
Yep, I have faith that Nightdew is going to be able to time this.
Okay.
Waited that extra tick on Rosa.
And in the meantime, Vitasia has gotten Kanatsu to the shell phase, which means that the fight is now over. Big congratulations to Vitasia for expertly handling that fight.
And Vitasia is going to be the first of our runners down here in the underground at 33 minutes.
Chat pointing out you don't want to see Kanatsu here, you want to see Kanatsu with elements. Elements, of course, is the single highest HP spot of any boss spot in the game, where Wave would be even worse.
And that is a mom bomb at the top of tower.
The Giant is a required objective this seed, so unfortunately we won't be seeing Kanatsu in the Giant today, but there are a variety of other nasty bosses that could be in the Element spot that we haven't seen yet. Vitasia now arriving at the Falcon, about to launch that, and we'll get our first look at the Underground in this seed in just a few moments. Now, with the tower key in hand, it appears that Vitasia is electing to immediately go back into the tower to presumably, in this case, do a bit of looting in addition to the two key item checks. There are a total of 4 trapped chests in the lower half of the Tower of Babel. Vitasia finds the first of those quite quickly.
And we'll see if this power by Yang is enough. Oh, yeah, that's plenty.
Yes, it is.
You see, I do that, and he only hits for like 900, so.
Well, clearly this Yang has been powered up a little bit more than that. That is a life staff. That is a very nice find for our Rosa. And Vitasia electing to equip that immediately.
Looks like Vitasia didn't pick up the silent staff, so definitely a much better weapon for Rosa than an archer bow.
Not much else in the other. That's an Aegis shield, another one, if I'm not mistaken.
And Nightdew has gotten Kanatsu to hiding inside the shell.
Which effectively means that Nightdew is now also through this fight. Quite the challenge for this seed. We do see a last-minute wave go off, but at this point, Kanatsu's HP is sufficiently low that everyone who is currently alive stays alive. And that is the end for Turtle today. Well done by Nightdew. Vitasia electing to turn in the tower key as they pass by the super cannon room and finds dolls inside.
Dolls here, not really what you want to see here. This is one of those spots that you'd really like to see a little bit of a nastier boss.
Yeah, this spot is one of the lower HP totals of any of the bosses, of any of the other boss spots, so you want to see something more challenging here than just the dolls. So that fight ends almost as quickly as it began. We will not see the key item here immediately. You will only see the key item from this as you leave the tower, and I suspect that it'll be a little bit before we find out what that is, as while you're here, you are generally going to want to go back to the top of tower as well and make that check. Which is exactly what Vitasia is doing.
Mom Bomb here is going to hit a little hard, but shouldn't be too much of a problem for this team. If we get the Zerks going, we might even be able to take down the Mom Bomb before she explodes.
And Nightdew, contrary to Vitasia, is at least initially going to heal up in the little cave in the Dwarf Castle area. Perhaps contemplating checking Dwarf first. And that appears to be what Nightdew is doing. Could well be that we will see Nightdew check the bosses here, or just check what items are available here.
Looked like Nightdew was thinking about doing shops, but then decided, no, I want to check out the boss first.
And we see Dark Elf as the boss. I believe Nightdew's party is in a position to take out Dark Elf fairly easily at this point. We have at least 2 effective Berserkers already.
And the spell's not doing a lot here to the party, so not much to worry about on that end.
There's a question in chat, is Nightdew the only one to do ordeals? Yes. The adamant you see that Nightdew has came from Mount Ordeals. So we will eventually need to see Vitasia go back and clear Mount Ordeals, as well as that adamant is required for the Forge objective. And it is also pointed out that so long as we don't find a Cecil, Vitasia may continue to fade ordeals. To which I would say, at this point you're not likely to take a Tella, I don't think, but that would be the other reason that you would want to go to ordeals sooner rather than later.
And Vitasia taking down Mom Bomb before she explodes. Meanwhile, we see Dark Imps.
And that is a rat tail for Vitasia. Speaking of Tella, apparently I can bewitch the seed as well.
Well, one of us has to bewitch it for good.
Yes. The Dark Imps are one of those fights, as we talked about earlier, where the fight is relatively free. There are some spots where they can hit hard, but the Dark Imps are more or less regular enemies. Other than that, it can be taken out by a wide variety of other means that bosses are normally immune to. So Nightdew is through that fight fairly easily. And after this cutscene, we will see what key item awaits us in Dwarf Castle. Meanwhile, Vitasia descending the tower, and we will also see what key item we get from turning in the tower key.
That rat tail is a very nice pickup. It is required, and it does lead to another key item.
So this may be something that Vitasia elects to turn in fairly soon, or may decide to stay in the underground to continue making checks.
And this is just an aside thing, but this is one of my favorite things to do if I have a hook route, because then you burrow through the underground to get back out with the one without the big drill on the front.
And Nightdew finds a Baron key in Dwarf Castle. That is required.
Nightdew also finds sirens.
Which is a very nice find as well.
And our third tiara.
Vitasia will also be finding sirens in just a few moments, and presumably will be heading into the rest of Dwarf Castle to also find that Baron key.
Now, if you were the runners right now, what would your route be?
It's an interesting question. I personally would be inclined to stay in the underground to at least do the Fey March at this point, because that is a free key item that I can pick up while I'm here. I can look and see who the bosses are. If one of them is a free boss at this point, I would consider taking them on. My party might be in a condition to take on some other bosses here as well. Vitasia is going to check Tomra finds exits in the item shop. Notably, Rosa does not know exit at this point, and we do not know at this point when she will be learning exit.
And Nightdew has decided to scramble some eggs.
Yep, with those sirens in hand, both of our runners are going to scramble a few eggs. Xenocat points out that we have the Loka key at this point. It might not be a bad idea to peek in Sealed Cave right now, or even possibly completing Sealed Cave right now, depending on who we find as the boss there.
It's definitely something that you have to do, and if you can do it earlier rather than later, it's kind of out of the way, so you don't want to keep having to come back to the underground for it.
A fairly common refrain in some circles is do your objectives, or a little bit more accurately in my mind, do your gating objectives, because we do find another key item in the bottom of Sealed Cave, or rather a key item check at the bottom of Sealed Cave, not necessarily an actual key item. For example, it could be our Darkness Crystal, getting us up to out to the Giant, or possibly to the Moon for more key item checks. It could be the Legend Sword, which we need for Forge. It could be the Earth Crystal for the objective and for some additional character checks. Okay, Nightdew and Vitasia are both now heading down into the Feymarch at this point.
It looks like they just both wanted to do a couple of eggs real quick. Maybe to just get that boost of XP, depending on the bosses down here, might be able to take them on.
Could be that that's all you need to do in order to take on the bosses we're about to find. Only finding a crystal ring in the free key item chest.
For as many required key items as we have, we're certainly not finding them on the Earth.
Vitasia finding Star Veils in this shop. There are also coffins available. Vitasia is probably going to pick up a few of those, and some Cure 2s as well. That is a very nice shop to find. And is now going to see who our Feymarch bosses are today. So that's the Baron Guards in the King spot, and either Rubicante or Elements in the Queen spot. So I suspect that we're going to see at least one of these two take on the guards immediately.
Yep, we have those coffins, we have hourglasses, we have Edge with a mute knife.
We still presumably have that assassin dagger here somewhere as well.
Rosa still has a silent staff on one of our runners' sides.
So, many ways this can be a very quick fight for both of our runners. And Nightdew breaks out the hourglass. Vitasia also breaking up the hourglass. It appears that Nightdew is content just to let Edge chew through these hit points. I believe we're seeing that mute knife in action.
Yes, Nightdew never found the second Murasame Mazamune. Never found one of those, so gonna go ahead and just use that mute knife.
Well, Vitasia elects to use some of those coffins to clear out the fight in just as little time. And that's a pan, which, again, miraculously, is not one of our required key items. It does, however, unlock a further 2 additional key item checks.
And since our runners haven't been back up to the surface, that's a 3rd key item check waiting at Sheila 1.
Yes, it is. Vitasia elects to exit immediately, and I suspect will at least visit Sylph Cave on the way out in order to prepare for those 3. Well, we will see one of them immediately, and the other 2 once we get back to Football Castle. Nightdew, in the meantime, is going to take us at least a peek at who our other boss in the Feymarch is. And it is, in fact, Elements, and it appears to be preparing to take that fight. With Berserking Edge here, this could be quite the doable fight at this point.
Yep. I believe it is the Rubicante form that it will be weak to that mute knife.
Yes. We're going to see some very hard hits from Edge here any moment now.
And if it is high enough, it could just completely skip. Nope, not quite.
No. Fortunately, we see Turtle again. Vitasia finding only a moon veil. I say only a moon veil, but I suspect we'll see value from that later. From the Selfs. And is now electing to head back up to the surface, presumably to check the Sheila checks, and may also turn in the rat tail while he's up here.
If I were Vitasia, I would probably, before I move my hovercraft, I would have picked up some more Bacchus wines, because we've been having lots of dranks.
And that is the Legend Sword from the elements in the Queen of the Fingmarch spot, which is required as well.
That is very good for Nightdew, as that was an adamant.
That is our second adamant of the seed from turning in the rat tail.
Does the tail vendor know that he's only supposed to get an adamant for the pink tail?
Well, I always joke that we should allow turning in the pink tail for a key item as well, but it appears that the vendor has other things in mind. But we do have our first objective on the board at just 48 minutes into the seed. With Vitasia having turned in that rat tail. And while Nightdew dives into Self Cave to also turn in that pan, we will see what items Sheila gives us today. Firstly, a Sand Ruby. Secondly, the Earth Crystal. So that is value right there.
Earth Crystal is, first of all, required, and second of all, if you're still looking for loot, that's the place to find it.
It'll be very interesting to see if Vitasia elects to loot the treasury at this point. I would probably not, with 2 adamant armors on hand and enough equipment for the characters that I've currently got. I would consider it maybe after I see who the characters at the top of Zot are, but right now, Vitasia's in a position where I don't think it's particularly necessary. Speaking of that second adamant, it goes on Yang immediately. Nightdew, in the meantime, is electing to go into Sealed Cave before leaving the Underground.
Doesn't want to leave this check hanging, especially since it is required.
Yes. Okay,
And
Vitasia.
remind me where we found the Baron key again?
I'm drawing a blank. Dwarf Castle, that's correct. Thank you, chat.
So both runners, I believe, finished Dwarf Castle, so they can both do Baron as well.
I believe...
Or did Vitasia only picked up the Sirens?
I was about to say Vitasia only picked up the Sirens. But Vitasia is indeed electing to go to Zot immediately, fading the treasury at this point.
So I'm a little worried about Vitasia finding the Darkness Crystal and clearing darkness before heading back to some of those orphaned checks.
That is Nightdew finding the Darkness Crystal in Sealed Cave, so no, we are not going to see that from Vitasia.
Well, he's still got the orphanage check of the top of ordeals and that elements.
We see a Pale Dim in the Sealed Cave, and we see a Leviathan in the Mega Sister spot at the top of Zot.
Pale Dim is not a particularly scary boss. We're just going to hear the slow sound effect 300 times.
The only real tricky parts of the Pale Dim fight are not things which generally come up in most cases. Mostly only in vanilla Final Fantasy IV are you going to see any of the other quirks of this fight. For the most part, it's just hit Pale Dim, watch the slow animation, repeat until dead. Vitasia, having cleared Leviathan, finds Cecil, if I'm not mistaken, in the first dot character spot, and has not done ordeals to turn Cecil into a paladin at this point.
That might push him back to do that ordeals, as we are guaranteed or not an adamant, well, we're guaranteed one of those too. We are guaranteed an Excalibur by that forge.
So Palom is in the other character spot, so I suspect we'll see Vitasia take Cecil, dismissing Yang to do so. Dismissing Palom. So we will see this fight, and then I think we will see Vitasia immediately go to ordeals afterwards. Nightdew, in the meanwhile, has cleared Pale Dim and has completed the Sealed Cave objective, getting his first objective on the board at the 52.5-minute mark. And that is an antlion at the top of Zot. Quite a ways away from the moon.
And Vitasia throwing that mute knife.
Which is, that's an interesting decision here. I get the need to want to take down Antlion's HP here, but the mute knife has much more utility for some of the bosses we haven't seen yet.
Might just be going for speed over efficiency.
That's certainly possible here. Question from Chet. Did the runners have a cursed ring or dwarf axe? I believe we have seen neither of those at this point.
Vitasia does have a dwarf axe. I believe it is equipped on his Cid.
Right. Thank you. Nightdew needing to walk out of Sealed Cave, not having any black magic on hand. Vitasia is through the antlion fight.
And I'd be interested to see if Vitasia goes and checks that treasury now.
Meanwhile, Nightdew, having both the Adamant and the Legend Sword in hand, is going to Forge, completing that objective as well.
We'll see if Nightdew goes ahead and robs the Forge's secret stash.
It would appear not. But as predicted, Vitasia is immediately heading to ordeals at this point. So we will see Vitasia take on Wyvern, and then the Kaiko Guards, and Water Hag fights here to pick up the Adamant. Not the Adamant armor, just the chunk of Adamant.
And we picked up a Protect Ring from Kokol's shop, as well as a Life Staff. That is it was an alright store, I guess.
There's a bit of chatter in chat about the giant boss fights upcoming. Unfortunately, we already have seen Keinatsu. Fortunately, for our viewers, that was along the required hook route, so we've had our dose of excitement from that already.
We haven't seen Valvalis.
We have not. There are still certainly some rude boss fights in the fold that could show up in the Elements SWAT to make our runners' lives more difficult. Nightdew electing to clear tower at this point. Still not having left the underground, if I'm not mistaken.
This will give Nightdew the rat tail from the top of tower. I believe that it was just a womp here at the tower key.
Yeah, I believe the tower key gave a moon veil. No, the moon veil was the first self check, or perhaps there were two moon veils. Dolls say hi, dolls are gone. Courtesy of Litbolt. Vitasia clearing the Kaiko Guards fight to get their Adamant and say hi-bye to Water Hag. Well, it'll be a little bit longer than that, unfortunately.
And while our runners are kind of retreading each other's steps, I do want to just take a moment to shout out, of course, our runners, Nightdew and Vitasia. They're the ones kind of putting on this show for you, running for you. They're both great runners, just both great people. Give them a follow. And of course, our behind the scenes staff, Neobari and Bahamut, both friends of mine. And then Esgrunt, who has just recently joined the community but has just been killing it as a commentator, a tracker, a restreamer.
Well, I've been around the community a little bit longer than that, but it's only recently that I've joined the Restream team. But I do want to also, of course, give a shout out to my co-commentator, Alisel, who has been around this much longer than I have been in many aspects and is a wonderful person.
Well, thank you. And then, of course, want to give a huge shout out to RPG Limit Break, letting us put on the show here. They're wonderful partners, and we are so thankful to be partnered with them to bring you wonderful free enterprise.
Vitasia is through the water hag fight. It will be interesting to see where he goes from here. Because we do know that Dwarf hasn't been done yet. We do know that Dwarf has the required Baron Key. Sealed Cave holds the Darkness Crystal. And there's also that Elements fight, which gave us the Rat Tail, I believe?
The Elements fight gave us the Legend Sword.
Legend Sword, thank you. Vitasia already has the Rat Tail. It's the Legend Sword that Vitasia is missing.
And I would suspect Vitasia is going to be funneled back underground, with those 3 checks being the only ones left to him.
The only reason that I would not expect Vitasia to go underground at this point is if we expect Vitasia to check the treasury, which I think is off the table at this point. So where are we going? We are going back underground, it looks like.
And looks like we're gonna scramble some eggs.
Yeah. More eggs. In a few moments we'll see Nightdew leave the tower and get their Zonk of the moment. Nightdew does have the rat tail from the top of the tower, which I expect we will see him go and turn in right away, which will lead to Zot. No, it's the pan which leads to Zod, of course. There's so many key items involved with this particular seed that it's hard for me to keep track of them all. Fortunately, we have many wonderful people keeping track of that for us.
Well, and looking at it, we are just 1 key item away from go mode, and that is the harp.
That is true. For all of the grief we've given the seed of giving so many key items that we don't need, we've managed to find most of the ones that we do need as well. Nightdew heading back into Cave Eblin, presumably to pick up some more items, especially the Bacchus wine, which is what I expect to see here.
And Vitasia heading into Luca, going to get that Darkness Crystal, hopefully clears out the underground before heading back up or going to the moon.
I would say there is a good chance that Vitasia will head straight to the moon. That having been said, perhaps Vitasia remembers that those elements are still outstanding and will want to resolve that particular thread before heading up to the moon. Vitasia electing to loot Sealed Cave on the way through.
Might be hoping for a light sword pickup for that Cecil, because Ogre Axe is not the dream.
What we would hope for is that Vitasia would go and find that Legend Sword first before leaving the Underground again. Pick up the Excalibur from the Forge.
And Nightdew actually picked up some more Bacchus wines before moving that hovercraft.
We will now see Nightdew turn in the Rat Tail, clearing that objective and getting their second Adamant armor of the seed. Yes, Vitasia has 2 Adamant armors. You have just seen how Vitasia got the second Adamant armor from the Rat Tail turn-in. There's the Darkness Crystal on Vitasia's side.
With all these cat claws that Yang has equipped, I think this is the wrong group.
Well, we've certainly found plenty of Aegis shields as well, if you think about it. Nightdew returning to Fabul to turn in the Pan checks. Those will give us a Sand Ruby and an Earth Crystal. And Vitasia now in the Pale Dim fight.
Prepare for the slow sound.
Yes. Always ticking away. Now, with the Earth Crystal in hand, I expect we're going to see Nightdew immediately head over to Zot as well. I think we will also see Nightdew fade the treasury here, because with this party at this point in the sea, there's no point in doing so. I'll be more interested in seeing what Nightdew does upon finding Cecil at the top of the tower.
I'd like to see Nightdew route that Earth Crystal into that Baron Key, as that's probably the most efficient way, and they're both objectives.
That's quite true, because as we know, completing the Tower of Zot will put you immediately outside of Baron in the best possible spot to turn that in immediately. Yeah, and as expected, Nightdew heads immediately into Zot. Vitasia, through the Pale Dim fight, is also going to need to walk this out. That is the third objective on the board for Vitasia. We're in an interesting position in this race. It's hard to tell who, if either of our runners has an advantage here, just due to the nature of the items that we found and the checks that they faded.
I think really it'll be very telling based on where Vitasia goes next.
If Vitasia heads back to that elements check immediately, then I think he has the advantage. If not, then I think Nightdew has the advantage here. Because if it's not now, it's going to be a very long time before Vitasia returns to do this check.
Yep, it's both the Elements and Dwarf Castle, so 2 required checks that you might be tempted to fade with that Darkness Crystal.
Because with that Darkness Crystal in the hand, the moon is possibly the highest density of key items you can get at any one location. At least with this flag set. And while they may be fairly difficult checks to churn through, we do, I believe, have the party and the levels to be able to handle them at this point. Vitasia heading to Dwarf Castle right away. This is important because this is one of the required items, the Baron Key. Once Vitasia gets that Baron Key, what he does next is going to be very important.
Now, I believe light swords were for sale here, so we'll see if this is just a light sword pickup or going to do the bosses as well.
Meanwhile, Nightdew has cleared the first fight in Zot and is now looking at that Cecil. I suspect Nightdew, having done the Forge, will take Cecil at this point. Vitasia indeed going to check the bosses. Let's see what happens. There goes Sid. And there goes Palom. That's Nightdew electing to replace Sid with Cecil here.
And immediately going to put the Excalibur and the Adamant armor on, and Cecil is going to go Burr Light.
Indeed. Even at level 1, a brand new, freshly minted Paladin Cecil is going to do quite a bit of damage with that Excalibur in hand. Especially with the Adamant armor as well. This antlion is not going to last very long.
Now, is Antlion one of them bosses that is strong against Holy?
I don't believe so. That's only Demus and I think Octomammoth that are strong against Holy. Both well before you can ever deal Holy damage. And that's the end of this Antlion. Chat pointing out that the middle two forms of Element are also Holy resistant.
Well, not only are they Holy resistant, they will absorb the Holy spell.
Yes. Okay. Nightdew about to leave the tower. Vitasia, also catching up through the Dark Games fight, is about to get his Baron key. So there's the Zonk from Zot, other than it being an objective. And, as we would expect, is immediately heading into Baron, using the teleport from Zot to position themselves to immediately head in here.
It's potentially 2 key item checks, and it's required. This is definitely the way to go.
2 key item checks, a character check, which, with this party, I don't think we're as worried about characters otherwise, unless we're looking for an anchor at this point.
Or we possibly find second Cecil.
Or we possibly find second Cecil. In this flag set, there is exactly 1 duplicate character that you can find, and we haven't seen them yet. For all we know, it could be Cecil. Nightdew electing to save before heading up into these fights.
And Vitasia, also heading to Baron, has faded that Queen of Summon Monsters spot as of now.
Which we could be waiting quite some time for Vitasia to go back to that check and find the Legend Sword. And here is DJ Mylon's Electric Dance Party. We know this now because we've already seen Mylon Z elsewhere.
And unfortunately, regular Mylon is not weak to Holy Swords.
So with this party at this point, this fight is not going to go on very long. Now, while the throne spot is not usually particularly threatening, I believe there's still a couple of things that could show up here that might pose a threat. Not very many, though.
I think the most notable would be that Golbez that's hiding.
Yeah, we haven't seen Golbez yet. That is Rubicante. I guess since we can't put the turtle on the throne, one of the other fiends needs to fill in for him.
That does tell Vitasia that that is elements down in Land of Summon Monsters.
Well, we'll tell. Vitasia hasn't found... Vitasia isn't quite there yet, but will be in a few moments.
Yes. And hopefully none of these fiends, Nope, we're fine.
Yeah, that's a very quick fight. So, in a few moments, we'll be seeing another character and another key item, not to mention the completion of the objective. This does leave the other, the Odin basement spot open. It will be interesting to see if we see either of them go back for it. Because that is the other key item check here. That's a Rydia, which I suspect we'll see neither of our runners take, unfortunately. It's a little late for Rydia at this point. And a harp propping up our exit. Unfortunately, we can't take that with us.
And Vitasia getting the rare text from Rubicant.
Okay, what is our check of the moment here? Is it something important? That's a magna key. We're well past the point where that's useful.
I think our runners also have at least 10 key items both, so that's
Yes, they do.
not even like partially useful.
Nightdew does immediately head back into the castle to check the Odin spot. The most important thing that we need to find at this point is the harp. This is a key item check, and if it turns out that harp is here, we might not even need to go to the moon at all. And that is Octomammoth on the basement throne.
It's a good place for your moon veil.
It is a good place to use a moon veil.
Or just have drinks and take out its arms and very quickly take it down.
It hit things faster than it can hit you back. It's also a viable strategy here. I can even see that it's not doing very much damage to party members it is hitting. And all of our berserkers here are doing a significant amount of damage.
And Vitasia also immediately checking this underground or this basement throne. So if this is the harp, both runners will be getting it.
If this is the harp, then I think we'll be seeing them immediately go and turn it in, of course. In Nightdew's case, because that would be go mode, and in Vitasia's case, because they would want to check the gating key item to see if it is the legend sword they are looking for. Of course, we know. And that is not a twin harp, it is an Avenger. It looks like we are going to the moon after all.
And Nightdew walking that out, that is a very nice weapon for that Cecil. You can Avenger glitch and not have to worry about casting Berserk.
Yes, with the Avenger glitch in play, effectively equipping the Avenger in mid-battle has no effect other than berserking your character. Most notably, it keeps the characteristics of the weapon you had equipped immediately before that. So, I believe we are going to see Nightdew turn in the Darkness Crystal now and head up to the moon. And unfortunately, I believe once Vitasia is through this fight, we're going to see him do the same thing. I believe that we are going to see Nightdew stay on the moon just long enough to find that twin harp, and on the way back, clear out the giants.
Now, where's the worst place that twin harp could be?
That will depend on how Nightdew elects to clear this. There are at least three possibilities that I can see here. You would either go to Cave Bahamut immediately, you would either clear the Murasame altar, the topmost altar, immediately, or you would head down and clear, say, the Ribbon altar immediately. So if you're electing to do one of the lunar subterranean checks, the worst spot it could be would be Cave Bahamut, because you're not going to do that until afterwards. If you're electing to clear the Murasame spot first, it could also be at the Masamune altar, or, as I just said, Cave Bahamut. If you are electing to clear Cave Bahamut first, it's going to depend on what you do after that.
And excitingly, Vitasia is going back for that elements fight, going to pick up his adamant. And personally, I kind of hope it's at behind Alt Gauntlet at Ogo.
You're right, we haven't seen Alt Gauntlet yet. And that is, I would say, the most exciting spot to find the Alt Gauntlet in.
Either that, or if it's at the Wyvern spot, that one's also pretty miserable.
Chat pointing out that Vitasia has set up a save in the event that this check does not give anything important. We, of course, are going to see that it gives the Legend Sword. Meanwhile, Nightdew finds Kane on the moon, and elects not to take Kane because we're past the point where we need him. of course, there was the Dragoon Spear we found earlier. I know Vitasia has darted that at some point. I don't know if Nightdew still has that or not, but
He sold it for drinks.
That was going to be what I was about to say. Nightdew electing to go to the Murasame altar first. So we will see if this is the harp we're looking for, or if we need to dive further into the moon in order to find it. And this is a fight that is good to see here. King and Queen Evelyn is a free fight. If you let it go on long enough, it will end itself for you. We could also deal enough damage to defeat the king, which automatically defeats the queen immediately afterwards as well. Which may be faster in some cases.
This is also a great time to take a drink of water, maybe blow your nose. Just let the game play itself for a minute.
Indeed. Vitasia picks up the Legend Sword. We will see Vitasia immediately go and turn that in for the Forge and guard our Cecil a better weapon. That is the end of the King Queen Evelyn fight on Nightdew's part. What's our item today? A full moon.
Lol.
To be fair, I don't know if we've seen a back row weapon for Edge yet, so it might be worth keeping for that reason alone.
Yep, but as Posmorpheus in chat points out, the lowest tier item you can get on the moon as a reward is a tier 5, and that was a tier 5.
Chat notes, Edge's parents just want him to stay safe. The moon can be spooky. We do know that the harp is here somewhere, though, at this point, so we need to tough it out.
But the moon isn't spooky, it's not haunted.
Yes, by definition, the moon is not haunted. It can still be spooky, though, as far as I'm concerned. Vitasia, having found that Legend Sword, having exhausted all of the checks on the blue planet, is now also heading up to the moon. We might see a difference in what Vitasia elects to do first here. Nightdew reaching the spot where you would branch off to do Crystal Sword, and as I would expect, is electing to go to the deepest parts of the Lunar Subterranean first for the 4 possible key items there.
We'll see what's hiding today in the Ribbon Room, the Plague Spot, and the Ogopogo Spot.
And the Ribbon Room giving 2 checks is often the first check you want to make when you get down here, assuming you've got the key items, of course. That's Plague. In a French vanilla spot, in some ways.
Plague can sometimes be scary on the moon, but I think if we berserk everybody, it's not gonna matter based on agility shenanigans.
I think we're at the point now where if you've got enough berserkers going with this party, everyone is going to be too angry to die.
I mean, that's my goal in life.
So, what we will see here in a few moments, unless we manage to deal enough damage to kill Plague first, is the timer will hit 0 and nothing will happen, because there are too many actions in the queue for the death from count to actually trigger.
And we see Vitasia taking on the Bahamut spot first. Might feel a little bit behind and want to take a gamble here.
Rosa, not having been berserked, is now dead on Nightdew's side, but everyone else is miraculously alive. Rosa not quite angry enough to live at this point, apparently. But Plague is down, and we find Baigan on Cape Bahamut. There's the Twin Harp in the Ribbon Room.
That is go mode for Nightdew.
That is go mode for Nightdew. So any moment now we'll see Nightdew head back to the Giant. Electing to go to the Giant from the moon saves you a cutscene, which is why many runners elect to do this on the way back from the moon.
Now, we still have to defeat the Giant. There could still be something nasty hiding in the Elements location or in the CPU location, so don't want to count Vitasia out yet.
So, of the bosses we haven't seen yet, who do you think would be the nastiest to find in one of the Giant spots?
Golbez.
Golbez would be a big one, sure. Valvalis would not be particularly pleasant to face here either.
I mean, it could be Val into Golbez.
Could be Golbez into Val.
I think if we call that, both these runners are going to make sure we never commentate ever again.
Yeah. Giant notes both that Adamants are going to negate most of what Golbez can do. We have found two of them at this point. Alt Gauntlet at CPU spot is also a possibility here. Or in the Element spot, as far as I'm concerned.
I don't even think I know what Alt Gauntlet gives on the Giant.
It gives you a tour of all of the grind options you could be doing in the Giant, more or less. Here's Nightdew finding the Element spot. Who's it going to be today? Bahamut.
That's the opposite of dangerous.
Yes. Bahamut's only move is to count down and use Mega Flare. If you've got a nice stack of Star Veils, the fight is effectively free. If you've got someone who can cast Wall, the fight is effectively free. And in this case, we've got both of those. So we're just going to see Nightdew, Star Veil up, Wall up, Berserk up, and this fight will not take... It's 65,000 hit points, so the fight will take a little bit, but it's not going to be particularly threatening in any sense.
And it does look like Vitasia is going to go bottom up, so probably heading straight for that ribbon room. Not going to be too far behind Nightdew.
Yep. Yes, as I mentioned earlier, it is fairly common to take the ribbon room first if you're taking the moon from the bottom, so Vitasia may not be here for very long. Alright, it looks like Nightdew is dealing damage fast enough that, oh, and the Mega Nuke comes out. This might end the fight.
Blarg.
Discount Blarg does not end the fight, but it can't be very long now. And there's the Crumble. Despite having 65,000 hit points, Bahamut had just enough time to get off that first Mega Nuke, and it is dead. It just goes to show how quickly this party is dealing damage at this point. So while Bahamut goes down to defeat, we see Vitasia, as we had hoped, immediately head into the ribbon room. So we'll not be too far behind Nightdew here.
And is going to go ahead and Avenger Glitch with that X-Cal. And we will likely see lots more Zerks come out and a bunch more people too angry to die.
Indeed. Nightdew comes up on the CPU fight. We find a Karate Man.
That is also free.
To be fair, he can deal a little bit of damage here, but with this party, this fight is not a problem.
Karate has the script of after the second kick and second hit, I believe, might just be the second kick, you hit him with Cecil and he goes ouch and goes away.
So as long as you have Paladin Cecil, the fight is effectively free, as long as you can tank those hits. Which, here, you're going to have no problem whatsoever doing that. We do have a character check here. It's well past the point where I think Nightdew would consider taking into account. That is second Cecil.
I like second Cecil.
Will Nightdew want to take second Cecil at this point?
I mean, it's better than a Sid.
The Sid is long gone from this party.
It's better than a Yang.
That's true. I suppose it is possible that Vitasia... Nightdew elects not to take second Cecil. I suspect that once Vitasia reaches that point, we will see a similar decision, but I could be wrong. Nightdew elects to fly the whale up to Troya, and will be on their way to check the harp and complete their last objective of the scene.
That's the one thing we didn't find, and that's the pass.
And since the harp is a key item check, it could well be that we find the pass here. There is a little bit of weighting towards K-name checks for key items, so it might be a little bit more likely to be here than you would otherwise expect. That having been said, there's enough that we haven't seen on the moon that I think it's still unlikely that we'll find the pass here.
See, that all sounds like math. I just hope it's all Gauntlet here.
Well, Alt Gauntlet is possibly the only remaining boss that could waste a lot of time, other than Golbez, of course, but even so, Golbez would not be particularly a threat other than in the time sense.
I just want music to go on for longer.
That is fair.
And Golbez gets rid of the music, so no Golbez. Only Alt Gauntlet.
Young is up and running, has elects to kamikaze Cecil to take Young out of the fight and end this phase so that we can get right on to our regular performance by DJ Spoony B. There's over 200 pieces of music that we could be listening to here, and you are about to hear one of them. So, listen up. This has been a special performance by JDA Spoony B. Thank you for attending. And our item for the day is a spoon. Unfortunately, we're well past the point where we can, I suppose Edge is still on hand, and we'll make for a nice quad 9's damage. But more importantly, and that is the last objective for Nightdew, and we find our crystal.
And Xenocat in chat pointing out that that was from Lunar.
Thank you for that. So that would imply that the pass is somewhere on the moon. I do not think we are going to see Nightdew go looking for that, because we need to go up to the moon anyway at this point to reach our last challenge of the scene.
And Vitasia's Cecil not getting the memo that he needs to wait until after the second kick, and just decides, I'm angry now.
there's the ouch. There's the end of the fight. So, effectively puts Vitasia at just the length of time it takes to check the harp, which is considerable, behind Nightdew at this point. Meanwhile, without the pass in hand, Nightdew will need to reach the very bottom of the lunar subterrane in order to continue on.
If I remember correctly, this takes about 2.5 minutes to walk down to the bottom of the lunar subterrane, not counting if you stop and save.
Which means that this is probably an excellent opportunity for us to once again shout out our runners, Nightdew and Vitasia, both long-standing members of the community, very skilled runners. Wonderful people to follow. Also to shout out our restreamer, Neobari, and our tracker, Bahamut X, putting in the behind-the-scenes work, and of course my co-commentator, Alicel, for hanging out with me and getting to provide some insights into this amazing scene.
I mean, I've just been memeing at this point.
You can't get through one of these without memeing at least a little bit, as far as I'm concerned.
But I do want to shout out S Grunt for being my co-comms and just being a nice and awesome person.
Thank you. Vitasia now entering Cave Magnes. Nightdew now passing the remaining altars. Will be past the Masamune altar in just a few moments, and will soon be at the deepest part of the moon.
Has Nightdew saved since before the giant?
I don't believe so. Nightdew has just passed up the last save point that he could have taken. That is quite the swag walk.
That's like ultra swag walk.
Very swag walk. I do see the first flag in chat at this point. A few more flags starting to come out as well. What might that mean? I don't think it's quite late enough in the evening to go to sleep at this point.
Well, you see, we can't randomize where Zeromus is because he's too big and too bad and nobody wants to fight him in Antlion but me. But Zeromus wants to be randomized as well. So he does it via cosplay. And Zeromus has over 500 different outfits that he wears to kind of show off his randomization. And we like to ask a question about this time about that cosplay. Would you like to do the honors?
Oh, absolutely. And the question on everyone's minds right now is, whose butt are we going to kick tonight?
And does it have a butt?
Is it butt cute? And many other such incidental questions.
But all of these sprites, well, almost all of these sprites have been brought to us by the wonderful Scala Kitty. Of course it's Sephiroth. Why wouldn't it be Sephiroth? There is a higher chance of finding a Sephiroth than anything else.
We see the Silk Web come out right away to nerf that initial Big Bang, in addition to of course slowing down Zeromus. This is a party where that's probably not strictly necessary, so it's interesting to see that come out all the same.
And it looks like our Yang is going to play a little bit of Chemist, or we just don't feel like zerking him up.
Here's the first Big Bang. This is, with the nerf in place, this is not going to be a significant threat to the party. Doesn't even deal 1,000 damage to anyone.
And I doubt we're going to see a second Big Bang at the rate we're going.
We have Cecil, we have Edge, we have Yang, we have lots of very rapid damage dealers at this point. Even with Rosa as the anchor here, the damage is going to come out too quickly for Zeromus to get out much beyond possibly a Meteo towards the end of the fight.
And Vitasia has gotten his crystal and is about to begin his walk down the moon, but barring just something awful happening, I think Nightdew might have this.
There's another shake. I don't think that is going to lead into anything. And that is the correct boom. That means that Nightdew has won this race with a final time of 1 hour, 37 minutes, and 3 seconds. GG's.
And I do believe we are joined here by Nightdew. GG's to you.
Thank you.
So how about that hook route?
Wow, it's been a second since I've had the Kanyatsu hook crowd. A little bit rusty, a little bit, how do I BS3 again? But we got there eventually.
I may or may not have spoken that entire hook route into existence.
I mean, we pre-race said, somebody said good luck, and I said luck is a very early hook and pigtail, right? So I think I might have spoke that one into existence.
It's a joint effort.
Yes.
But tell us about that seed. Kind of what were your thoughts? How'd you feel about your routing?
It was a little, I mean, that was one of the rougher parties I've seen at the beginning. I mean, it's not every day you slap an Adamant armor on a Sid, but I mean, yeah, he had an Earth Hammer and an Ogre Axe, so why not? After getting underground, though, it was about completely academic. At that point, it was I can sweep everything here on the underground, and then I get up, and then it's like I can sweep everything on the blue planet. Let's just see if the moon is completely haunted, and we don't need to step foot on there. Unfortunately not, but the Twin Harp's showing up very early. But yeah, it just became we're here, let's just sweep the arm and get everything on our way through, because hey, we're already here.
Well, and that definitely worked out for you with just finding, other than that Twin Harp, everything you needed without ever having to raise the Lunar Whale.
Yeah, it's a little weird. I was thinking, I knew I was gonna get rid of that Sid. The other thing was, like, we found Blarg very fast. We found Odin reasonably fast, and it was one of those things where, you know, with 2 adamant armors and an edge and 2 cat claws, it's like, agility, what's that? We're just gonna not entirely wing it, but I mean, when a crystal ring Rosa is your anchor, well, I mean, there was really nothing more than ultimate power, and I haven't had a 5,000 hit point Yang in my party for forever.
Well, sometimes you can deal enough damage and have enough health that you just don't need to worry about silly little things like anchoring.
Much.
And I do believe with this win, does this put you as the winner of your group?
Yes, I believe that will lock down Aegis Shield, so the happy part is going to brackets. As some people, namely Morpheus, has said, this is possibly shaping up to be the Quadrant of Death, so, well, I'm here, and, well, let's go.
And I believe you have to play somebody from Spear.
Yes.
Yeah, Spear, and yeah, I mean, did NG go 5-0? I know he was 4-0 at this point in time. I don't know if he carried the group just yet, but yeah, we do have the Spear. I do have the Spear runner-up there.
Yeah, I don't know if we know at this point, but even if we do, I do not want to ruin the surprise for our viewers.
Oh right, that must have happened very recently. Then I will check in the spoilers channel then.
I don't know what's going on with my group. But yeah, any last minute thoughts on the seed, on the tournament, anything?
I mean, as always, I haven't played in a tournament. I haven't found fun, so I mean, that's a thing there. But again, and I guess I kind of want to say this to everybody else in the Aegis Shield group, that I have seen, like, just through this time of the tournament, massive improvement from, like, everybody else in the area. I mean, I mean, Vitasia, as I'm looking at it here, is practically on my heels. I didn't feel safe, and for good reason here. Had I slipped a little bit more, I believe he would have overtaken me.
Yep, it was very close. Vitasia actually got getting through down to the underground a little bit before you did, but the way you routed just worked out perfectly.
Okay, well, I think that's it. Another GG, and thanks to the entire staff and commentary team for putting this together. And I'm pretty sure Vitasia will be here very shortly, so I'll go ahead and duck out so he can get in there.
Well, thanks so much, and again, GG.
GG.
And that was our first place finisher, Nightdew. And it looks like Vitasia is just about done with this Sephiroth.
There is Meteo, so we will be done here in just a few moments. And there it is, the crack boom. Vitasia is now also through the seed with a final time of 1 hour, 42 minutes, and 42 seconds. GG's.
And with that bidding, I do believe we are now joined by Vitasia. GG's to you.
Hey, GG's everyone. That was, I want to blame Nightdew because at the very start of the race in a race room, he blessed us with an early hook pinktail, curse, and I'm like, oh well, look what we have here, early pinktail and hook, and an Eddie start of all that. Oh goodness.
So tell us a little more about that hook route. What was your reaction to it?
I mean, so here's it. Like, I know in my heart of hearts that Nightdew is a superior player to me. Like, when it comes to the knowledge of Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise, when it comes to gameplay, things of that nature, I concede that he is a superior gamer. So I knew that if I was going to beat him and stay alive in this tournament, I had to make some gambles. So when I first went up to Mount Ordeals and sub Blarg, I'm like, nope, let's not waste any time here and just immediately go into the underground. Luckily, I had bought a stack of Thor Rages, a stack of 10, and it was Kenyatsu. And Kenyatsu has been enough of a block getting into the underground that I wanted to practice Kenyatsu at that particular location, not on speed 3, on speed 1, so that I could get a good rhythm down, get some Zerkers going, but still be comfortable always nerfing, always kind of interrupting his wave. So that's like one of the few things that I have explicitly practiced in Free Enterprise. So when Kenyatsu showed up, I was like, okay, well, let's put this to practice. So I felt really good about Kenyatsu until Ogopogo showed up right beforehand and decided to be extra rude.
Well, your practice certainly showed off because without saying too much more about it, you were the first underground at this point. And unfortunately, we did see you almost pass up the key items and ordeals, and we did almost see you miss that legend sword in the Fey March. We were speculating if you were going to be heading up to the moon before making that check. So what motivated you to do that at that time? Just making sure that you had cleared out everything on the blue planet before you headed up to the moon.
That's really what it came down to. Is I had checked everything. I was looking at it and kind of counting key items. And I wanted to, I just didn't want to orphan any one location. And that was really what it came down to. I knew that I had kind of left Asura alone. I knew I had left, a couple other kind of one-off locations alone here and there. I did explicitly gamble ordeals, but when you see Cecil in Tower of Zot, and you know that the seed is going to hand you an Excalibur at some point in time, you take it. Like, it's just like, okay, well, I guess my next decision is made for me. So I wanted to do that, and then I was just kind of following the objectives as I got them. So you'll notice, like, as soon as I got Earth Crystal, I did Tower of Zot. As soon as I got the Baron Key, I liberated Baron Castle and did the Odin spot. So I was just kind of following things around, and then I looked around, and I think it was Asura and maybe one other check that I hadn't done, and I'm like, let's just clear the blue planet first before I go to the moon. Luckily, we found one item. It got me Excal before going to the moon, which was fantastic. But it sounds like by that point in time, I was already behind. And it was just, okay, one item, go mode. Check what's going on in Cave Bahamut. It was just a white shirt, so I reset out. I didn't even wait for the fanfare, which I felt saved me a little bit of time. But I think by then everything was already written. Congrats, Nightdew. I think he probably routed a little bit better, and from what I can gather, I kept Sid with a dwarf axe the entire race, and that probably slowed me down through enough fights that it added up.
You mean more than the slowness of carrying the dwarf axe around in any case. Allie, do you have any questions for Vitasia at this point?
No, I think y'all covered pretty much everything.
Any last thoughts from you, Vitasia, before we see you off?
No, just GG's tonight, dude. Congratulations for winning the group. It was a fantastic group. I was trying to come from behind and try to get the dreaded, like, everyone tied at 3-2 or something like that. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen. GG's to Nightdew. Everyone in this group has been absolutely fantastic. GG's to all of them. Shout out to Neobari, Bahamut, behind the scenes work. Ali and Grunt, the two of you, for on the comms. And, this has been a fantastic tournament. And I hope, while I doubt I'm going to be moving on in any other capacity, I'm going to be around and still volunteering behind the scenes. So, GG's to everyone, and thank you.
Well, thank you again. Thank you for the show.
Thank you just for the shout out, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.
Okay, and while that brings us towards the end of our restream today here on RPG Limit Break, we are certainly not done with races for the day. Happening right now over on the main Free Enterprise channel, we have Rybon versus eNinja81 in the Heroine Row group. And later on tonight on Free Enterprise 2 at 10 p.m. Eastern, we will have Steph Lively versus Klopfer from the Gaia Hut group. So with that, we are going to send you over to our other race in progress right now on the main Free Enterprise channel. We look forward to seeing you over there. Please do not spoil anything about the race you have seen so far. Many of our viewers often enjoy viewing races on their own time. We do not want to have the results unfairly revealed to them before they're ready to see it. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you around.
Bye, y'all.